Hi, everybody. My name is Jeffrey LeFrancois. I'm the co-chair of the Manhattan Community Board for Waterfront Parks and Environment Committee. As you know, we're having these meetings online because of the pandemic and because of the governor's executive order allowing us to do so. I'm with members of the committee along with my co-chair, Marty DeCat, who's enjoying some coffee. And Water, okay. Along with the rest of the members of the committee. We have two items on the agenda tonight. The first, I'll be handing it over to our board colleague to talk about what he has going on with students as it relates to Pier 76. So without further ado, Veeran, I give it over to you to dive right in.
Okay, so very quickly, this was the studio in fall 2020, and my students are here, about 13 of them, I believe. Our studio was sort of a little broad-based theme, and it was looking at inhabiting infrastructures and creating public spaces. And the sort of general title of the studio was Architectures of Care and Infrastructures of Well-Being. Part of the reason why the studio was structured in that manner was in response to two things that happened in 2020, which we are still going through. One is the pandemic, and the other one is the BLM protests. So the students were asked to look at architecture beyond what we typically look at. So the title of the studio was Public-Private House. So the intent being that the manner in which housing itself became infrastructure, to be able to sort of, for us to stay connected and work remotely and teach remotely and learn remotely, and how does that change our relationship with architecture? Similarly, the public space, our relationship with the public space also changed. And what does that translate into? And one of the two sites that we looked at, two neighborhoods that we looked at, besides West Harlem, was Pier 76 in the context of it being handed over to the city and to the community, hopefully pretty soon. So students were asked to reimagine Pier 76 from that sort of broader point of view. So they came up with a whole bunch of ideas, and a lot of it is focused on not merely sort of recreational park-like setting, but also how we can actually use this collective resource for a lot more than simply sort of, bike paths and jogging tracks. So they have looked at a number of different issues. 3 different projects is what we're going to start. That's what we're going to look at tonight. And these were group projects. Each group had at least 3 members, and one group had 4 members. So with that, I'm going to actually ask Janine to start with the intro movie. And if you can make it full screen, please. Janine, you have to share the audio. You have to restart and reshare. And when you reshare it, you just click on that button which says share audio.
Can you hear it?
No.
Our studio has visited Pier 76, and we have seen the potential that has been denied.
Are you able to hear it
We
now?
see the opportunity to reintegrate the site back into the city and flesh out the importance of its infrastructure and public service. Manhattan's piers are man-made land. They are the existing connection to the natural that flows around. The pier that should serve as more than a public park, it has the potential to aid the surrounding environment that exists both above and below water. By revitalizing Pier 76, we create a connection to nature, to the community, and to the city. The studio questions the balance between privacy and publicity, personal space and collective form. we ask how we might see, reimagine, and draw architecture differently, and inhabit space differently. This site has the potential to inspire the many piers surrounding New York City as an example between pier and community. It also has the influence to change the perspective of underutilized and abandoned spaces that live in our cities around the world. The development of Highline and Hudson Yards has spurred the process of gentrification within the city. In addition, with the pandemic, it has caused greater physical and social disconnections. Analyzing the built environment of the area, we discovered the site has the potential for its proximity to water in the urban center. Pier 76 is within walking distance from Hudson Yards and Penn Station, where thousands of people commute from other states to New York City daily. Healing nature can be defined as a medium to mitigate and mediate the relationship between nature and humanity. Our project views the city as an ecosystem that houses nature and people together. The proposal consists of interchangeable programs centered around the Eco Lab with the Climatorium, including exhibition spaces, eco park, and maker spaces to raise awareness on second nature, climate change, and potential remediation. Its aim is to produce an infrastructure of well-being and care to carry out the mission of healing through an incremental development, growth, and adaptability. In response to the city's failure of dealing with the pandemic, this project introduces a new urban landscape that reimagines socialization. New forms of space that emphasize the care for nature, people, and the city. The provided spaces emphasize the significance of easy and quick responses to future outbreaks and the healthy treatment of the surrounding environment. The Garden of Care combines activities of Chelsea Market and the Convention Center into one single space with 3 functions. This project explores Pier 76 as an integral part of a larger system, with Grant Houses as a counterpoint. Through a peer-to-peer network of exchange, both sides reinforce one another and together reach towards autonomy from systems of neglect and marginalization. In this sense, Pier 76 is a reclamation of public infrastructure to produce green energy, organic agriculture, sustainable building material, and the associated knowledge and skill essential for building a better future. As a part of a greater system, Pier 76 helps build a landscape for longevity, for the individual, the community, and the city harboring it.
Hey, Janine, is there any way I can share that was just the intro movie, actually. I'm sorry. Janine, is it possible for me to share the videos? It's very grainy because actually it's not downloading fast enough. And we're doing it from the Dropbox.
Yeah, I'll share. I'll let you share the screen.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump in. It's Tina. It's fantastic. I love it.
What you saw was the intro movie. Now we're going to go into 3. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. There we go.
No sound.
Okay, well, sorry, my fault. I'm going to reshare. I'm sorry about that.
My name is Lan Hua.
My name is Mel Ting.
My name is Trisha. Our project views the city as an ecosystem that houses nature and people together. It aims to develop a two-way symbiotic relationship to heal and to nurture nature, while nature acts as a remedy for the human body and mind.
Looking into the past, we saw a series of influence on nature by urban developments in Manhattan. The Manhattan was a vastland of untouched topography with swamp and forest. Urbanization has modified into manufactured land that negatively impact the natural habitat. The increasing crisis put our attention on healing nature on both public and domestic scale within the space of Pier 76.
We focused our concern on climate change, pandemic, and manufactured landscapes to see how they affect the built environment and human health. We defined three natures: the first nature that consists of the natural landform without human intervention, the second nature, the man-made environments, and third nature, the hybrid natures that mitigate and mediate the negative effects created by second nature. The pier's physical structure is experiencing decay with its deteriorating wooden piles. Our project looks at this as an opportunity to unbuild and rebuild the pier in incremental phased manner. People can use parts of the pier for both recreational and revenue-generating activities while the construction undergoes.
We choose to leave portions of existing wooden piles in space that occupy to naturally decay and show the original footprint of the pier.
The modular components are interchangeable to allow a parasitic-like addition. Each unit shares a connection with each other while allowing expansion if needed. The placement is centered around an anchor program with secondary and tertiary programs branching off from it. The meandering circulation and undulating path enhances the visitor's immersive experiences with nature at where city and water meet. With the flexibility of the modular frame, it has the ability to grow in the future as needed.
The plano axon shows the public circulation, a central path supplemented with meandering path that the street level is widely accessible to the public. Programs of the Ecolab, exhibition space, and eco parks are arranged along the central circulation. By segmenting each module, the interior spaces are flexible and can be easily modified to provide services.
The utilization of water is an important element in mitigating the polluted Hudson River. The breeding and preservation of life forms underwater, integrating oyster beds in the eco park and natural habitats along the shore, can promote cleaner water and habitat for marine life, while bringing fresh air inland. Also, raising part of newly constructed piles to support the modules allows more light to penetrate into the water. The open spaces on the deck level allows the visitors to visually connect with the water. The recessed platform also gives them the opportunity to physically interact with the piles and water.
The plan shows the interlaced program within the modules and open space. These programs are laid out to activate space for learning, producing, and engaging. The Ecolab is divided into fragments that focus on the research and cultivation of species such as oyster and native marsh plants. Beside or the eco park can be used as an extension for cultivation, and a crematorium that exhibits environmental simulation using technologies that introduce the climate crisis we're facing. The makerspace are located closer to the entrance for its commercial convenience, and it can be used as a rental space to generate revenue.
This interior view is for the climatorium. An immersive experience of nature can be created with 3D projections and sound installation collected from nature. This elevation scroll is a view from the street towards the waterfront, shows that the healing nature is acting as an extension of the city and how one's experience changes from the massive skyscrapers and busy traffic into the breeze and water.
The view from the river to the city, healing nature blends within the fabrics of its background and become a public living room of the metropolis engaging with nature and its people at the waterfront.
This view is at the entrance of Healing Nature, where people enter the intervention on the central circulation. People will come to enjoy the daylight and fresh air, to experience the sound and rhythm of water, to reimagine our city's relationship to the water and Mother Nature that brought us fortune, and more importantly, to learn and be educated on our current crisis of climate change and environmental sustainability.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cindy Chuan.
My name is Angie Montenegro.
Garden of Care emphasizes the healing and caring for our communities by creating healthy environments as well as productive landscapes that help heal the mind, the body, and the soul. We divided Garden of Care into 3 programs: the market, green spaces, and caring shell. The top diagram demonstrates moments of how the roof changes from the ground to the top. We took away parts of the original pier to give out more for the nature beneath water. The roof of the carrying shell has the highest point, connecting to the deck line and allowing visitors to engulf in the beauty of the city across the river. This diagram demonstrates the connection of the urban city to the waterfront, having the car circulation on the north that will lead directly to the carrying shell. On the south will be a bike lane, which creates an opportunity for a healthy environment. The roof will encourage interactions between nature, people, and the city. The market is placed closer to the pedestrian to attract the general community to interact with the space. It also connects to all our green spaces to expose people to a healthier environment and being more aware of what they consume. Above the market is the roof farm. Adjacent to the market is the Hydroponic Center. The Hydroponic Center functions all year, growing fresh produce that acts as a fundamental connection to the carrying shell and market. Our entrances welcomes everyone. We wanted to create easy access for those with disabilities, those who have an active routine life. Our goal is to create a space that families and friends could share while enjoying an open view towards the Hudson River. The market offers produce grown on the roof and hydroponic atriums, which gives the community the opportunity to sell their own health food produce on site. These programs will work together and enable the community to come together. The market will operate all year long, which provides the neighborhood not just healthy produce that is grown in the hydroponics and the roof farm, but also job opportunities and revenue that will maintain the pier's longevity. Our green spaces encourage caring for nature, people, and the city. It provides a walking, jogging area, a picnic sitting area, as well as a healing and exercise space for the soul. Our green spaces include the hydroponics, roof farm, and overall landscape, which provides care for the environment while offering tranquility for the human mind. The hydroponic space contains vertical hydroponics, aeroponic towers that are placed on different platforms. These tubs allows the space to expand the view and the perspective of the consumers and allow us to utilize the space efficiently. At the center of the hydroponic space is a container that acts as a reservoir and collects water from our roof to be filtered and distributed to our hydroponics towers, as well as all the plumbing fixtures in our garden of care. The roof farm is placed above the market to easily connect both programs. Crops are grown passively through the use of water reservoirs. The water reservoirs immediately flow down from one plant bed to the other and are controlled to evenly connect and distribute water to our crops. All crops harvested from this farm can immediately be purchased in the market, as well as be picked from the plant bed by the consumers when ready. We created an atrium in the center for the public space and seating areas to easily eat food purchased from the market. This atrium contains outdoor green space that hopes to heal and relax the human mind and body. During our investigation of this pandemic, our focus was directed towards frontliners and their immediate contact and danger with COVID-19. The carrying shell acts as an adaptive and versatile space that can accommodate and manage future outbreaks, emergencies, and unforeseen calamities. On a regular day, the shell functions as an educational space and galleries exhibiting local and famous artists. During an outbreak, the shell is reconfigured into temporary housing for physicians and emergency units. With the use of movable panels, these reconfigurations are made to be easily adaptable, as well as making the space more interactive. Our project, Garden of Care, is a form of architecture that hopes to bind the surrounding urban landscape and open spaces of the neighborhood, from the current piers to the High Line. In the future, we want visitors to experience more programs that embrace a public space with nature and healing of the mind, the body, and the soul.
We are presenting Autonomous Zones.
It's located at Pier 76 near Hudson Yards and works in relationship with our prototype partner site located at Grant Houses in Harlem. The sites work in tandem to build landscapes for longevity for the individual, the community, and the environment. The project sees the city as a site, and envisions a peer-to-peer network of exchange through connectivity, communication, and production for the neighborhoods to reinforce each other and collectively attain autonomy from systems of neglect and marginalization.
Initially, we explored the spatial qualities of protest as one of disruption, flowing across the city, both contesting and representing the public space it is occupying. Using the Black Lives Matter protest of summer of 2020 as an example, by physically and symbolically contesting the structures and power relations that try to control it, protest has the potential to illustrate a spatial reality that could exist, enlarging the possibilities of representation and self-determination.
Pier 76 is set within this context at Hudson Yards, the largest and most expensive private real estate project in U.S. history. It's a development on public land for private profit, made possible through the developer's use of gerrymandering to expropriate and steal government redevelopment funds intended for low-income communities in places like Harlem. Exhibited here are some of these juxtapositions. While income, education, and food access are drastically different on each site, Hudson Yards was able to access the same types of funding used for public housing projects across the country via the aforementioned gerrymandering.
Our approach for the pier includes reclaiming the city's waterfront as public infrastructure, declaring education, energy, and food as human rights, and becoming a beacon of New York City's commitment to the climate crisis. The pier captures wind, solar, and tidal energy, while the ecology on the site sequesters carbon. Within the context of the pandemic, Pier 76 would address the recently intensified threats of job insecurity, food insecurity, and the gross lack of breathing room for social distancing in the rapidly densifying urban fabric. The pier produces green energy, organic agriculture, green building materials, and the associated knowledge and skills essential for building a better future. Utilizing the existing historical pier infrastructure, the project proposes to harness the available sources of renewable energy on the site and design architecture as infrastructure integrated with the performative and productive landscape by forging productive relationships between the site and programming. The southern terraced side of the pier is designed as a stepped landscape for farming that also acts as a tidal sponge, while the northern side is conceived as a raised landform that provides interior productive spaces, a market, and a series of community classrooms. Extended piles function as frameworks for pop-up and clip-on appendage spaces, such as greenhouses in the winter or public restrooms. Our intervention challenges rapid urban densification for the purpose of profit. Instead of private profit generated on public land, as is the case in Hudson Yards, we reclaim public space to increase equity and address symptoms of unchecked capitalism, a public space for public good.
Inspired by examples like New York City's own Swirl Burge, a mobile pier in Pier 76's north site would grant space for different interdisciplinary programs. The mobile pier is a detachable portion of Pier 76 that can dock and embark 2 different places. While docked, the railings on either side are pushed down and the sides rotated, allowing the mobile pier to serve as a natural extension. When embarked, these close. While the mobile pier has some designations, the main level can have interchangeable functions within it, like hydroponic units, planting beds, and technology hubs. By having the tools mobile from one site to another, it allows for people to develop skill sets and resources wherever they are. Instead of reworking everything existing, we are carving out elements using the infrastructure of the piles. First would be the removal of the existing shed and flooring, then carving out and removing parts of the remaining pile's substructure. Lastly, placing a new surface elements atop that infrastructure, ending with the addition of greenhouses and the mobile pier, which can have the potential to be added to as time goes on.
The undulating pathways supported by the extended piles allow for a variety of vantage points to the water and for air and sun to flow through the pier to the ecosystems below. The piles which hold the floating farms in place also generate hydroelectric energy as the tide rises and falls. As you meander the productive landscape, you become more aware of your position in relation to the water's changing tide. Here's an example of a tide change over a single day, where the floating farms rise and fall along with it, and the tidal sponge soaks up any overflow. The Pier 76 intervention forms a dialogue about exchange of knowledge, space, production, and culture around the idea of the city. It becomes part of the connective tissue of the city and therefore a collective resource for all New Yorkers.
That's it. Thank you, guys.
Is there another video, Viren?
No, this is the third project. We had 3 projects.
That was the final. Okay, I thought so. I just wanted to make sure.
No.
Okay. Well, first of all, bravo. Thank you for this. I know that, just so everybody knows some background on this, Viren and I were chatting, and given his studio and our recent news around Pier 76, of which I have some more information to share on that too. We thought it was just a good idea to have a short conversation around what his studio had proposed. If folks have questions, Leslie, I just saw your hand go up. I'm sure people would, the really talented people that put these presentations together probably have some answers. Leslie?
I put my hand up early because I don't think I've ever gotten emotional at a WPE meeting before at a presentation. And I got to tell you, I'm tearing up. So Jeffrey knows there's a few of us who are on this call who are actually on the Hudson River Park Task Force, reimagining the space for Pier 76. And early on, I said, you know what, it should be an environmental beacon. It should be something where people in the city come, but also visitors come, like a destination area. You just gave me all the ammunition I need, right, guys, that I can kind of go and say, this is actually something that can be done, whether it's elements of it or whether, you know, like you can mix and match. I think this is spectacular. I think it is exactly what I kind of had in my head, but I had no idea how to kind of say the words or express what I was thinking. But I think it's amazing. You guys did such a phenomenal job, and I'm being very effusive, I understand, but this is months ago what I was kind of looking for in a destination environmental space that people would just really love to be around. And it's so environmentally forward that, like I said, it could be a beacon. Anyway, great job. I know I'm gushing, so I'm going to stop because it's embarrassing, but thank you so much.
Thanks, Leslie. Viren, would you mind stopping the screen share so we can see faces again easier, more easily? Thank you. Any other members of the committee have questions or comments? Is there anybody in the public who has questions or comments? If you want to use the raise hand function. Marty, go ahead.
I'm not going to effuse the way Leslie did. Consider it done. Terrific work. I am curious. I want to press on what you did. Did your teams talk about financing at all? Did they talk about how expensive their various projects are?
Before students answer, I just want to quickly pick up on what Leslie was saying. One of the sort of one of the considerations for the premise for the studio was very, very clear. That we have very many piers across the city. And each community looks at it as something that belongs to that particular community, but the size of Pier 76, the scale of it changes the entire sort of equation in a huge way. And the proximity to Highline, proximity to Javits Center makes it a very different kind of place, number one. Number two, piers were designed as infrastructure for the city. And it was an active waterfront, right? And they were used for transportation, for bringing goods back and forth. And we kind of, somewhere along the line, we lost that focus. And we started using piers more for recreational purposes than for productive and performative purposes, which is where putting this pier back into the idea that it actually belongs to the entire city. And there are connections between these piers that need to be explored. I think that was one of the sort of major issues. So I agree with you, Leslie. I think changing the scale of looking at these peers increase the amount of work these architecture students actually ended up doing. I don't know if I made it clear to you, but these are undergraduate students. These are not graduate students. So you're talking about amazing level of maturity in terms of research and data collection that they've done. I mean, one of the groups, group 2 and group 3, they looked at New York City as the city of pandemics, actually, starting with 1918 flu pandemic and how Central Park altered itself and other places in New York City altered and how different hospitals came about. You actually begin to see the logic with which city reorganized itself almost 100 years ago. And city is beginning to do that now. So we can't look at peers or any other public space without taking into account that context in which we live today. To Martin's point, we had to sort of, they did consider to some extent revenue generating sort of capacity that the peer will need to offer. We invited Hudson River Park Trust folks who came in mid-semester and explained that, listen, we don't get money from state, we don't get money from the city. So to run this peer operations, we need to find ways of generating income. So some students did sort of take that into account, and consistently in all 3 projects, you would see that they're trying to kind of meet at some point. So they're multiplying the peer. It's not a single level peer. It's at least 2 or 3 levels that they're creating. So some intentionality in terms of how this would become revenue generating operation is kind of taken into account, but I'm going to let them speak to that.
So I respect very much the assignments that you've given and the product that these students have produced. And that's why I'm pushing the envelope a little, and I understand that. I do it respectfully. The second question I had, it relates to the financing, is have your teams gotten together and decided what elements they would put into a final product, or didn't you have time for that?
Yes, in terms of programming they have, I think I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let them talk because this is their show. So folks, go ahead and answer the question.
Thank you for the question. For our project, the Healing Nature, to your first question, that if we have ever considered about the financing issue, therefore for us, we proposed a incremental development to incrementally unbuild the pier from all the way on the edge that is closer to the river, and then slowly incrementally build towards the shore. Therefore, partial parts of the pier, they will remain active while the construction started all the way at the end, and that way it allows for budget flexibility. So if they in the future they would love to, or they have the ability and budget to continue adding on with those modular systems that our team proposed, then they can do so when they have the budget flexibility.
Just to add to that, what this group did was they looked at the entire pier and they took seriously the sort of presentation by HRPT that the actual wooden piers are in very bad shape and the pier eventually will have to be rebuilt. The piles below will have to be rebuilt. So they propose that you start with the far end, and while you are actually putting new piers in, you continue using the front part of the shed. So they're not dismantling the building in one go. They want that to be done incrementally. So by the time you come to the front end, you already have more usable space already built at the far end. That's the kind of, checkerboard logic. Anyway, anybody else from the group?
Adding on to Professor Viren and Lanhua, we also proposed a tertiary program, which is near the entrance as a rental space to invite the local artists or use as a innovating space, and we can rent it to generate revenue.
For our group, we thought of the future of how to maintain the pier to keep it going. We thought of how we can produce spaces that we can earn money and revenue for the future to help this keep going on.
Anyone else from the class, or we'll take the next question? Brett?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, this is great. It reminds me back in my architecture school days where you did things not thinking about why you can't do something. You thought about what can be done. So the rest of us, I'm hoping, looking at everybody else in the committee, we're all living with the political realities and everything that goes around that pier. But one among the two things I'd want to point out, one is this is a pier that you all had imagined for the community, for the neighborhood, for the city. Hopefully you guys all stay engaged, and and your sense of activism is inspiring. We would love for you guys to stay engaged and help us, because we know that we're in for a battle, because this is looked at as a pier that's going to be generating revenue for the Hudson River, not necessarily a pier for our neighborhood. So we would love to get this movement here that you guys have engaged to keep it going for us. The other thing that I didn't hear anybody pointing it out, and I think you just must have known it intuitively when you're talking about sustainability. And it's another thing I hope everyone in the committee here, we're environment committee. There was a theme that I was noticing in most of those presentations about flexibility, which is the ultimate in sustainability. The better than recycling is reusing, being able to move things around, repurpose. There was a lot of space that was not defined for all eternity. That it was very purposeful space. Even one pier that can move. I mean, my goodness, this is flexibility. It recognizes that our city changes, our neighborhood changes, and what people would need from that pier is going to change. And so I want to applaud you all for, even if you didn't call it out overtly, I'm going to point it out so we all can make sure we notice that there was flexibility built into most of those designs. And I think that was fantastic and the ultimate in sustainability.
Thanks, Brett. Chris?
Evening, everyone. Thank you, Viren, and thank you to your undergraduate students. Just first question is, this is to the students and to Viren, but you were given this request how long ago? How long, and then how long did it take for this final presentation to come together for us today? What was the timeline from RFP request from the Reimagining task force?
So Chris, there was no direction from the Pier 40, Pier 76 task force or the community board for.
So, but no. So okay, then let me restate. There was a conversation that happened. Viren has his amazing students in this amazing project. How long did this take to come together? Because this is, if it's in a matter of a short amount of time, I'm incredibly excited to see what the students think can go into the final modules for a tiered out build out.
This was a semester-long project. We didn't take any direction from either the community board or from HRPT or anybody else. This was actually a decision that this was an advanced studio, so I actually designed the studio brief, and I come up with the syllabus. So it's unlike what happens in other schools. Architectural schools require the faculty to do a lot of homework before they offer a studio. So it took me about, I would say, through the summer, I was thinking about that, and we put together, I put together the syllabus. Students spent 15 weeks through the semester of fall 2020. So we started around late August, and we completed all the work by, remind me, when did we complete? I think December sometime.
Yeah, early
December.
This is absolutely incredible. Coming from a project management position point of view, I can only applaud, and I yield to David Haloka. I know he's got plenty of things to ask and speak on.
Thanks, Chris. David, and then Brad.
I don't really have things to ask, but I just think this is wonderfully thought-provoking. The shed at Hudson Yards has this big canopy that's supposed to open and close, and one of the complaints about it is that it never does. But Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that it dates back to a project from the 1960s by Cedric Price called the Fun Palace. And that was an era, of Japanese metabolism and plug-in architecture and archigram where entire cities might rebuild themselves and modules might plug into things. And it was all about flexibility and the fact that you can't know the future. And, I love these ideas of modularity that are in here and the ideas of the floating piers. And one of the big drawbacks of the existing pier is the vulnerability and the decay of the piers that support it. And it makes me wonder if this entire pier couldn't float and have interchangeable elements that could be carried away on the water or brought back and be more sustainable because of that, because it could rise and fall on the water. I just want to thank you all for a really exciting, thought-provoking project.
David, I think you hit the nail on the head. The project actually started looking at pier as a site, and unlike traditional architectural sites, this is a non-site. It's a constructed site. It's not real land. Everything is floating about it. So they did look at that. The second thing I wanted to tell you, Cedric Price was one of their case studies. Not only the Fun Palace project, but also ThinkPad. I just didn't want the audience to get bored speaking about architectural theoretical projects that happened in the past. But Cedric Price was one of the major kind of case studies that group member, all the groups looked at it actually, but healing, the very first project we looked at, Matt actually considered that project very, very carefully, actually. The other thing that I wanted to tell you that talk about is that decay was extremely important for that particular group. That they wanted to understand decay and actually use that as a design element. So let the pier decay as it is decaying, and when you reconstruct, they were actually willing to give away parts of the pier in consideration for the life underwater. That is actually a very large footprint, 750 feet by 350 feet. It's larger than any city block, actually. So that's a lot of cover that actually floats over Hudson River. And yes, everybody's right that the focus was ecology, the environment, and the climate change. So a lot of conversation that cannot happen here, and I wish my students will talk about it, but they did consider a sea level rise and what will happen if the water sort of comes and floods the space. So all three projects actually take that into account, which is why you see very many open areas that water can actually just flow right through, and the pier doesn't get doesn't start falling apart. Anyway,
Right, it reminds me of
David.
Sorry.
Oh, I was saying thank you.
It reminds me of the big thinking that went on in the 60s, and I wish we could apply something like that here. Thank you, Viren.
Brad?
Good evening, and thank you, students. What a wonderful job. This board has been fighting for the environmental side of it. You showed it. This board has been fighting to have other add-ons such as the floating gardens, and we're trying to find other revenue besides an office building. And you showed that we could grow crops there and actually have a real business that could bring money in for the park. So well done. Turbines, the rest is fantastic. Going back to Martin's comment about the money. So Viren, it would be great, and this is a very good start for us, but the trust challenged us to say, what can we do with a blank, just knockdown facility and just have the asphalt cover, right? And because it could take years before something happens. And it would be great to hear back from you like this to say, hey, this is how we imagine a temporary space for 10 to 15 years, because I think that's what's going to take to get the money. And with the imagination of your students, they could probably come up with something great, because what the city came back to us was, let's do a roller rink. Let's put some lines down. I mean, it was just like, I couldn't believe it. So it'd be fantastic to see if you can, another program to say, this is what we could do with what's existing there. Just a thought. But great job, guys. I have to say, Leslie said it right. It was emotional. Thank you. Oh, one more thing, because I'm a drone guy. A possibility to bring in money is an Amazon floating dock that attaches. That money alone could pay for half the park.
Brad,
So
you did
I
not
just
say
wanted
that.
to, I just wanted to say that. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Leslie, I'd like to go to the member of the public unless it's something specifically new so we can keep this moving. We do have other items on the agenda tonight, and I have some exciting new pictures to share on Pier 76.
Just one comment for the record. I know people think this is fanciful. I know people like thinking the money, this, that. I got to tell you, there are elements in here that people are doing in other areas already. The hydroponics, I mean, maybe not the wind turbines, but you know, that's expensive, obviously, or maybe not cost effective in this particular area. But this is not as far-fetched as some people think. I mean, the floating barge, I just wanted to say that for the record. It's not as far-fetched as some people think. I think it's a terrific job. Thank you.
Okay, if we could go to Jen.
Jeffrey, may I make one comment? It's quick.
Sure.
Brad reminds me, because he and I play a tag team often, asking for solar and wind. And when a project comes in, one of us says, well, why didn't you do that? And here it is, somebody's come in finally with all those elements in it. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty.
Jen?
Jen, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, just showing you all the sunset.
Jen, if we could get right to the comments, please.
I'm sitting at Pier 62. Fabulous presentation. The youth are our future in coming up with these brilliant ideas. Like Leslie, felt like crying. I was walking my dogs. I couldn't process everything that I was hearing. I think it's fantastic. And I also agree, as I've said before, like this is one of those meetings where I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. I also agree that Amazon, Google, or Facebook could pay for it. That's where the money comes from, and it comes immediately. Just an idea, but to the students and to the instructor, amazing. I'm like beaming and I have goosebumps. So thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Viren, you inspired tonight, and your students certainly inspired tonight. What's really exciting is that Pier 76 is transforming as we speak. I put together a half a dozen pictures of the tour that I took last week with Lowell, in which you walk on this pier and you can see the sky because they're tearing it down. And so I was going to bring that up in new business, and so we can talk a bit more about it at that point too. But if there's any other questions specifically on this, if not, we'll move to the next topic on our agenda, with great thanks to these undergraduate students. That I actually didn't realize, Viren, so thank you for pointing that out. Congrats and bravo to you all.
Thank you, Jeffrey, and it's wonderful for the students to come and join you guys here today. Thank you, students, too. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks everybody for those comments. Quite a feel-good start to the meeting, and I think we get to keep that going from our friends at Hudson River Community Sailing, I believe it is, right? Okay. Yes. We are gonna pass this over to you guys.
Wonderful, thank you. Also, great job, guys. We are actually your neighbors. Well, we're the pier directly south of Pier 76, so we've been watching the transformation this spring. So I'm Maeve Gately. I'm the Director of Communications at Hudson River Community Sailing. We're a youth development and community sailing nonprofit located in the Pier 66 boathouse in the Hudson River Park. We also have a second location we opened a few years ago in Inwood at Dyken Marina. We work with public high school students in the district teaching STEM and leadership, and we provide affordable access and sailing education to the city at large. Some of you on the committee might already be familiar with us, since this committee helped expand our mooring field a few years ago to add 50% more capacity, which was really instrumental in our growth. So we're going to show you all a short video, if you don't mind queuing it up, Janine. that'll hopefully give you an idea of what we do with some visuals. And then I'll turn it over to my colleague, Don, who's our Community Sailing and Operations Director, to tell you a bit more about what we do.
Hudson River Community Sailing is a sailing school, but it's so much more than that.
We have this very vibrant, active community sailing center that does racing, has youth camps, works with youth groups and scouts and adults and members and veterans. And so it's a very lively place. But at the very center of it, at the heart of it, is a youth development program that works with 9 public high schools and about 150 students over the 4 years of their high school career.
We use math and science in a practical sense. So we not only learn how to do algebra or trigonometry, we learn how they relate to sailing. We actually use those skills to determine where we're going to sail and how we're going to use the wind so that it feels more real to the student.
Being in this program is a lot different than just being in class. It's a lot more hands-on.
It's opened me up to new ways to view things and how to solve different problems.
It's about inquiry, and it's about taking a hypothesis and going out each day and seeing if that exists on the water.
In the next 10 years, there's so much we can accomplish, and there's so much yet to accomplish, not only in the world of sailing, but in the world of education, hands-on, experiential education. And we're really at the cutting edge of that, and we're looking forward to pushing that edge even further.
Thank you. And we have a couple slides that we like to show as well. But my name is Don. I'm the Community Sailing Director and Operations Director at Hudson River Community Sailing. You saw me in that video. I will never not be embarrassed by that. But I want to tell you a little bit about our organization right there on Pier 66. If as you're walking by in Hudson River Park, we have developed an award-winning sailing school over the past 14 years. And we are really lucky to be in Hudson River Park, working with Hudson River Park Trust to have that space. And we have a second location that we've opened up where we're really working with middle school students and building new programming up in Inwood, where we're working with city parks. So we're a growing and expanding organization, as I said in that video, which I think is like 4 years ago now. But I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what we do and our mission to bring the community to the water and how we accomplish that. You can actually go to the next slide here and I'll talk over that one just so people, if you'd like to read a little bit about the things I'm going to go through. So we have a lot of different programs, and I'll try and keep it brief, but our mission is to connect a city that, as was mentioned in the previous presentation, that has been disconnected from its waterfront, and bring them back to the waterfront and bring everybody back. We have a city sail is our summer camp that we run for ages 9 through 12. Maeve's going to talk to you in a second here about our youth development program and all the amazing work we're doing there. But that's how we get anybody who wants to come out, an experience on the river, at least for ages 9 to about 17. And for our adults, we offer lessons that range from about 3 hours of just a quick intro to sailing lesson, low commitment, up to an 18-hour certification course through U.S. Sailing, and you can earn a nationally recognized certification right there on the river. People who take those lessons often decide to become more involved, and we have a membership, and it's important to us that membership be really dedicated to inclusion. Our mission is not only youth development, but community access. And so we want to have a really low barrier to entry and a really welcoming environment that brings everybody out sailing. Our membership's about 300 people right now, and those members all share the boats together and with our youth development programming and with our lessons and everything that we do. And they really form the backbone of our volunteer corps that helps with all the other work that we do, both with youth, but also for events that we run, like Knickerbocker Sailing Association's Pride Regatta, or the Veterans Administration runs an annual event for wounded veterans called Heroes on the Hudson that we've hosted there since before probably before my time at HRC. We've been doing it for a while. And these programs tend to grow and evolve. Our Heroes on the Hudson program evolved into a veteran sailing program for us, where we now have a nationally funded grant through the Veterans Administration to have veteran sailing free to all veterans who have a relationship with the VA, and get them involved. It is an adaptive sailing program, though, in that we're trying to make sailing as accessible as possible. And with that, our latest initiative, as you can kind of see in the picture on the lower right, is to really expand our programming and make the waterfront accessible to all New Yorkers, including those with disabilities and in wheelchairs, and trying to bring a really robust adaptive sailing program to a city that has never had it before. And there's still much more we're trying to do and much more we're trying to expand. The frontier is continuing to be pushed, but I'll turn it over to Maeve to tell you a little bit how that's looking on the youth programming side of things.
Awesome, thanks, Don. Janita, do you mind going to the next and last slide? So the other half of our work is this youth development program, which is an after-school program. In Chelsea, we work with 7 different high schools, all within walking distance, all within District 2. And students are eligible for math and science credit that they get by attending this program at least once a week, starting in 9th grade, and for some going all 4 years and beyond that. So we help our students develop competence and identity with STEM, whether that's going out on the water and measuring basic current speed, and then doing cross multiplication to figure out how fast the boat was going, or learning the physics of how a sail works, going out and catching what wildlife lives in the Hudson River and then bringing it in a fish tank and coming up with a display to share with the public. And along the way, they develop really important leadership and communication skills, which they'll need to do in small groups out on a boat. They build wooden boats over the course of the winter and then launch them to show their friends and family. As they get older, we help them develop career skills and train as interns starting in the summer after the 9th grade year, and for many students remaining involved after they graduate and coming back over the summer when they're in college. And then we help them apply and get into college, work out their financial aid, and stay connected as alumni. So we have been doing that work since our founding, and throughout all of this, we have about a $2 million budget. We're about a $1.6 or $7 million organization. Half of that is funded through philanthropic revenue and donations, and half of it fee for service from lessons and memberships. All the work that Don was talking about really helps underwrite the operating costs that allow us to provide affordable access to the community and this free programming for students in this district. So we basically just wanted to, we've presented here before, but it's been a really long time. So we're back open. We reopened last July, a lot of safety protocol in place, having students and members of the public wear face coverings and maintain smaller crew sizes on boats and doing a lot of cleaning. And then we transitioned again to remote over the winter, and we're in the process of getting the boats in the water as we speak. So we just wanted to update you on our work. Answer any of your questions. We obviously want to be a resource for the community, especially right now when we know New Yorkers really need access to the water, both students and adults and families. So just wanted to give an update and take your questions, any suggestions for partnerships or anything else that might come up. And thank you.
Thank you, guys. Well, 2 feel-good presentations tonight. This is really, really awesome. Another phenomenal community resource right in our neighborhood. Thanks to the amazing organization, Hudson River Community Sailing. Any questions? Sally, I see a hand. Any other questions from the committee? We can start that now. Sally?
Okay, thank you again. Yes, a very inspirational evening. I'm just having such a good time. I'm interested in how you select the youth that can take the program. I think you said it was focused on Chelsea and Inwood, and you just have room for so many students. But is this offered citywide? I know you're located near District 2, but do other kids have the opportunity to participate? And how many boats do you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll take the students one and then I'll have Don speak to the boats. The after school program that I specifically spoke about, Sail Academy, is done through direct and longstanding partnerships with 7 schools. They're all high schools, so they draw from students from all 5 boroughs. But they are all schools located within walking distance of our Pier 66 boathouse. We do have a second location up in Inwood that works with 3 middle schools. But there's opportunities for other students to get involved. We have multi-day or one-off partnerships with other schools directly, or students come through our summer camp that Don talked about. But in terms of the free after-school program that's grant funded, that is really specifically with those schools, and they kind of have to be within walking distance because of the way the program is structured. If they get out of school, then they walk over there. So we aim to work with Title I school students who qualify for free or reduced lunch. And the way that we determine our population is directly with the schools who we have these kind of long-standing partnerships with.
Okay.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I just imagine that you have a lot more students that would like to be involved, that can be involved. And there are so many restrictions on addressing that. I realize that. It's a great program.
Absolutely, and I want to thank this group for helping us expand a few years ago to bring more moorings just south of Pier 66 and improve that, which allowed us to expand our fleet from, I think what was at the time about 12 boats between the 2 locations. To add another 5 to that was really huge, and we're continuing to expand in Inwood as our work with Parks Department kind of grows there. So right now, the plan is to have 15 boats in Chelsea and then another 8 in Inwood.
Maybe we can get some more in on Pier 76. launch the students near Pier 76.
Wouldn't say no.
Thanks, Sally. Anyone else with questions? I will just, Marty.
Go ahead.
I was just going to tell that in 2012, I took a series of classes like after work sales. And then I had signed up for a lesson that summer, a weekend lesson, but it was when we had really bad rainstorms and the sewage overflowed at the 135th Street plant, and they canceled the lessons that weekend. And so I never got my sailing lesson. So I think I have to take my certification course this summer now because you guys paid for it.
I want pictures of that when that happens, please.
Well, this is Marty. Did you have something real?
Well, no, I think that's wonderful. I think we should write a letter from this committee, and it will be your responsibility to write it, that we agree that you should get your certification this summer. Vote on it. A more serious question. I know your organization sounds wonderful, and the work you're doing and the presentation that we just saw, the feel-good evening that we're having is just wonderful. I know that there are other organizations throughout the city that do similar things. I'm thinking of Rocking the Boat in the Bronx. I just to tell you that I'm a board member of the Bronx River Alliance. I don't have a sense, because as a board member, I'm at arm's length a little bit. I don't have a sense of what the interplay between your organization and these other wonderful organizations are. My guess is that it would take extra time on your part, but my second guess is also that if there was some designed interplay between these organizations, you would all benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we get that question a lot. Obviously there's not a lot of waterfront access, or especially community sailing in New York City. So we know Rocking the Boat, well, they're a great organization. What I will say is that we do have some connections, and our staff know their staff well. Our executive directors actually spoke last week. We run this sailing program for the New York Harbor School down on Governor's Island, and we helped out with their fundraiser. We know Bronx River Alliance, and they're fantastic. But the short answer is that no, there's no Waterfront Association of Youth Programs. But feel free to jump in, Don, if there's something I'm forgetting.
Yeah, I'll just add that I also serve as the Community Sailing Committee chair for U.S. Sailing, and community sailing centers across the country, particularly right now, are really seeing a need for, particularly around youth, but for adults as well, to get people outside in safe, but active situations. And particularly around the youth side of things, it's around social emotional learning and with students going remotely and other things. There's, I think, more opportunity for partnerships now than there ever has been. And there is a spirit where people are ready to collaborate and really make an impact on all of our communities.
Well, I think that those are great statements, and I understand that nonprofits like yours don't have time to do much else. That makes sense, but if there's anything that I or we can do to facilitate that kind of interaction, it would be my pleasure.
Great. Well, thank you for this. Good luck with the season. Good luck getting those boats in the water. And I look forward to seeing them soon off of the piers in Chelsea. Brad, is that you with your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to say that now that the Intrepid's paying $1 a year, maybe you guys could have a fundraiser there, free of cost. Just a thought.
Look at that. We had that conversation a couple of months ago. So we are always interested in ways to get nonprofits to raise money that do such wonderful things for our community. So
I already put that in the chat, that the Intrepid should do that. One step ahead, Brad.
So if nobody has anything else, I have a couple of items, just very brief updates on new business. Don, Maeve, thank you so much. This was really, like I said, a feel-good evening. So thank you for that.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
And again, and feel free, make this an annual thing to keep us posted. We like that. So good stuff. I am really excited because we had that presentation about what Pier 76 can become. And I had the pleasure last week of joining Lowell to see what Pier 76 looks like. I'm not sure if anybody's been by, but the facade, you guys can see my screen, right? Great. The facade is literally coming down. And 5.5 acres is a tremendous amount of space. Maybe you were in there to pick up your car if it was towed, but with the sides off and the sun coming through on the roof, it is just going to be an incredible amount of space. This coming Tuesday, the State Parks Commissioner is going to be briefing the Hudson River Park Advisory Council. I'm going to drop that Zoom link in the chat. It's a public meeting. Folks are welcome to attend. We might want to request a similar update. When I went, we were told that they would be opening this to the public on June 1st for its interim use, which we had supported. Look, this is just to show you that it was really me that took these pictures. I was there. So it's really amazing. And if you get a chance to go by and watch this happen, I mean, this is historical. So do go check it out. Classic Car Club will be staying there. They still have, there's ongoing with the trust dealings with that, but otherwise the entirety of the pier is being made usable for interim use by the state right now. And again, I can't emphasize enough how much 5.5 acres of space is and will be for our community. There were a number of items that were brought up at the last meeting that are working their way through updates. The Highline will be coming to us next month regarding their the state's proposed extension of the High Line. So stay tuned for a presentation on that, at which we'll be able to opine and respond accordingly. And then I see Therese is here from Parks. Therese, are you with us?
I am. Hi, how are you?
Hi. Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Great, thanks for being
great
here.
presentations.
I have a couple questions as it relates to lighting inside of Parks. At DeWitt right now, along the walkway, there is probably 7 or 8 lights that are out. How does Parks sort of maintain that? Is there do you need form notification? Do they go around and replace light bulbs? How's that work?
So DOT maintains our lights except for the sports lighting that teams pay for to use on the field. So I go around probably once a week and check up on my work orders with DOT. If you see a duct tape on the light, it's been reported. If you don't see duct tape on the light, I don't know about it, and I'll catch it when I drive by at night one of these days.
And we can can we use 311 to make requests to say the lights are out?
I just email me and I'll make sure that a work order goes in.
Okay, that's super helpful.
If you don't see the duct tape on it, it's definitely something I don't know about.
Okay. Folks, I think that's generally good for us to know if you see lights out in Parks, there's a process on that. Excellent question, Leslie. That was on my list too. That it's amazing seeing those get transformed. Therese, the stairs at DeWitt. Can you share updates and time frame on that?
I think it's on schedule. We're having a meeting next week to get an update on what's coming next, but it seems like it's going along just fine.
And it's on schedule means when will I be able to grandly exit those steps to get across the highway to the Hudson River Park?
Let me just ask that right now because I don't have the schedule in front of me. I'm sorry.
Okay. Another update, as many of you know, the gorilla was going to be on the agenda this evening. That lives in Bella Abzug Park in Hudson Yards right now. And I was chatting with Bob Benfato, the executive director of the Hudson Yards Bid, who's the entity that brought that gorilla there. And they wanted to make it permanent. They're in talks right now with Parks to extend its residency there for another year. There's an odd rule that temporary sculpture cannot become permanent. So they're working, trying to find a workaround, trying to find a way to have maybe this gorilla find a home there, because it seems to be quite the draw and a lot of folks like it. So they didn't come for support tonight. Bob had it tabled, but he asked me to share that update with everybody. Brad?
On the same note, the stairs at your park, because I call it your park, Jeffrey, let's get them in a movie so it gets real popular there. And my point is, can we add art there to draw people to this expensive stairs that we kind of were like, maybe let's spend the money someplace else, but let's make it a draw for the selfie world. Just the thought, we should put a pedestal there while they're building it to hold some real art.
It's a good thought. There's no public art in DeWitt Clinton Park, so.
No.
We have the Flanders Statue, which is nice.
That is true. That is true.
But there's anticipation of it being finished in September, which is great. And I did happen to come across some bike rails that we may be interested in installing so that people can come up the stairs with their bike. And I've got to look into see if they're going to work after the project and it's not going to ruin any warranties and it's not going to damage anything. So that's also being looked into.
Okay, great. Really good to hear. Thank you. Any other questions for Therese or formal requests for business?
Jeffrey, Catherine has something, so I'm going to bring her over right now.
Oh, sure. Sorry, I missed that hand.
Hi, Catherine, you can speak now.
I'm trying to unmute. Okay, and then do you need to see my picture? I could take the video off too. Start video. Okay. Hi, Community Board 4. I was in front of you 2 times before. I live in Hell's Kitchen. I live on 47th Street. And what a great presentation they did tonight. I was really just goosebumps as well. I am concerned. I live on 47th Street and 10, and I was before you before. I'm a USA Pickleball ambassador for Manhattan. The USA Pickleball is a huge organization throughout the country, actually international. And what the sailing school people were talking about is exactly what I'm trying to get going in Manhattan, because Manhattan is way behind the 8 ball as far as getting youth programs. They have youth scholarships through the USA Pickleball. And I moved here. I used to live here and then I moved back. But anyway, so I'm also certified to teach through the IPTPA in pickleball. Since moving here, I've gotten the community of Manhattan together. We have over 300 people now playing pickleball. I teach, I do clinics, I did some today, but most of it has been everywhere but the West Side. And people complain that there's nothing on the West Side. So when I was before you before, I was told that there's going to be a resurfacing project for the Hell's Kitchen Park located on 47 and 10. And so I really am curious to know what the update is, because I'm a little concerned. And then I talked to the head of the Parks Department and they promised me or told me that I could probably have 2 painted pickleball courts, because I would like to, like the sailing school, get a youth program started in Manhattan. I'd like to work with the high schools. I'd like to start, they're competitive. They have all kinds of camps for youth, teenagers, high school kids. And they said they could paint me 2 courts once they resurface the Hell's Kitchen Park on 47 and 10. So I haven't heard any update. I haven't seen any movement. I haven't seen anything. So I wanted to come before you and ask, what is the status of resurfacing that park?
Thanks, Catherine. Therese, any updates on the resurfacing at HK Park?
Right now, we're making sure that funds can transfer over to this project. We're not in any danger of it being pushed out. COVID pushed everything out. So
yeah,
getting the contract back in line, and we'll get a confirmation, I think, within the next week as to whether a timeline can be put forward, so we know when that can be finished. And then we need to.
So you're in procurement right now?
Yes. Well, it's a contract for state of good repair. So it's different from most capital programs in that the design phase is not something we have to go through. There's a process of bidding, but they've already got a contract that they just put it onto because it's asphalt and it's just painting. So it cuts a lot of red tape because all of the process for finding contractors is reduced because we already have them to do that specific type of job, which is asphalt and painting. So it's a great win-win situation that it looks like it's very likely to go through.
And we anticipate this, do you think this would be resurfaced this summer?
I don't know about this summer, but I can talk about it once I get a timeline from them and their contractor after next week.
Okay, that would be great.
Thank you for the update. I appreciate it. I'm just concerned, because it's growing so fast, pickleball. I don't know if you know anything about it, but it's growing so fast that I would really hate to see Manhattan left behind.
Gotcha. I'll pass that along. Our commissioner loves playing it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Brad, is that a fresh hand?
Yes. When you were at the site where they were demoing, are they taking the roof off too, Jeffrey?
I should have explained what's going to happen. The roof is coming off completely. I'm going to do give you guys a moment.
Is the steel going to stay up?
So these, can you see my mouse?
Yes.
So these steel trusses, these north-south trusses are staying there, but there'll be no roof. It'll all be open to the sky, right? So you'll have a series of these, but these are probably 30 or 40 feet high.
Jeffrey, what I'm saying is, you see how they've got the one piece down in the middle there?
Yeah, all
for
that's
shade reasons. It's probably good to leave maybe the core center or something. And then to Martin and my point always, they could put just for some power, put some temp turbines up there. or some solar. Have Tesla sponsor an educational thing and get some power going up there. I don't want to see it all taken down because I think we're going to need some shade. And then what are they? Do we know what they're going to do? Just a server is just going to be an open space? Because pickleball would be great there, a couple courts, and so I'm curious what the public's going to turn it into. Because if it's free reign, we'll
passive.
find out.
There'll be some furniture. There will be lighting, and that's about it. The state will do that and then hand it over for use and for the trust to manage. So I mean, you're right. It's going to be a social experiment in terms of what the space turns into and becomes. Well, everybody, 7:53. I think this was a really positive and productive meeting this evening. So we're noting, is that the farmers market happening, or these are ideas for 76. Yes. Roller derby. I like that too, Tina. If there's no further questions, we can actually, let's see.
Therese put her hand up just now.
Therese, do you have more?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you an update on Clement Clark Moore. We've been having staff stay at the park to keep people out of the dangerous area next to the building that's having a facade wall problem. They're slowly putting up a shed that's going to protect the fall area of the pieces of that building. But until then, we've been keeping staff at the park during open hours to keep kids from running into that area. We also have some barricades up. So hopefully that'll come along faster. I saw progress on it yesterday, so they've started putting up the shed there.
The park was closed today because they were putting it up.
If they were bringing in materials from the street, it might be that was closed for a short amount of time. Can you tell me what time you saw it closed?
1:30, 1:50. Then I walked by it again at like 4. So it was closed the whole day because I saw them putting up the bridge.
Oh, good. Protection. Yeah, that's likely. They didn't let me know, which is not good.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go.
Which building is it?
When that's gonna be finished. It's the one
on
that's
the. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It's the building where they allowed them to punch windows in over the park. And it's the one from the opposite of the entrance.
The White Row House.
On the east side, yes, where they did the pop-up on the roof. It's a very narrow building, 16 feet. It's a lot. Well, I don't want to get into it.
The famous Obama fundraiser.
I was just going to say it's a fundraising house. I didn't want to get into political.
Just a quick update. Living across the street, the shed is probably 90% done already. So.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Yeah,
yeah,
it's always good.
They'll probably be done tomorrow. It looks like they're working pretty well on it.
Thanks, Alan. Sally?
Yes, Therese, I was going to email you, but as long as I have you here, are we getting our sign for Chelsea Green?
Yep, I handed it over to our sign person. They're going to get it refabricated because it's very scratched up and I want it to look real nice and clean. We're going to install it with some 2x4s so that somebody can't just rip it off the wall and put some bolts. So it'll look a lot nicer, and a lot less difficult, a lot more difficult to remove.
Okay, and a bigger no dog sign.
Gotcha. I might have to install that with 2x4s as well.
Thank you.
Sally. Alan, is your hand still up, or you shared your update? We're good. Brad, you have something else?
Yeah, this is for David. David, I walked by the Highline Hotel today, and I did not see the sign. So I was with my family saying, oh, we can go inside. There's a park in here. We always talk about this sign, and it even wasn't there. I was looking for the little sign. There's nothing there, and there's a big cover now, like a winter cover to walk in the entrance. So I know you love those guys. I just thought maybe, because really there's no sign. I don't see it.
Yeah, they used to have it like, it was like a game to find it, but they're not even playing the game anymore.
No, that's too bad. Okay. Feel good meeting. I don't want to go negative.
Thank you, everybody. That's it for now. Enjoy the weather, enjoy our parks, and we will see you all next month.
Jeffrey, please.
you.
thank the
Bye, guys.
What was that, Marty?
Well, people are signing off. I wanted you to thank the presenters again that were still online.
Oh, well, that's true. It was really great. Sorry, I didn't do that. So
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
In the ether.